Hi, welcome back to another Tea Talk session on my channel. I'm Jules T and welcome to the Jules Tea Talk channel. If you're new to this channel, I want to help you to become a better communicator and leader in your career. One of the things that I truly believe in to be a successful leader is to be well-read. Not only well-read in the area of your competence, but also be well-read in other industry, in other mental models. And one of the books that I recently came across is called Poor Charlie's Almanack. So this book is about Charlie's writings and speeches. He recently passed away at the age of 99. So Charlie Munger is actually the business partner and good friend of Warren Buffett. They are business partners of Berkshire Hathaway, one of the most successful company in investment. I will break this video into 3 sections. First is about his sharing on how he learned things, and secondly is about the habits and attributes he thinks that everyone should be having, and the third one is about financial literacy. One of the important things he shared is this: to spend each day trying to be a little wiser than you were before you woke up. So this is so true. I've seen it happening to my parents and their peers. My parents are educated and they read a lot, and I used to have a lot of business magazines like Time, and I have all sorts of newspapers in the house. I really admired my parents, especially my dad, because he was so well read on the world. And when I was 17 years old, he came back and saw me sleeping all the time, and he would tell me, "Jules, please do a little bit more reading. Reading helps you to open your mind to the world." As a naive 17-year-old, I started to read more literally, and that time the books that I had around me were romance novels, and I started to pick up old romance novels such as Mills and Boons, and I was reading stacks and stacks of it, and I was in this fantasy land which is so fictional. When I ended every book, it just seemed so meaningless because it's something that would not happen in my life, and it was something that I couldn't imagine myself going through. And I decided that was not for me. But somehow this message carried on. I knew I was doing something not right, and I didn't know what was the right way to read. Literally, I was doing a lot of studying on my academic books, but I was not doing more than that. But I came to this realization at a much later age, in my late 20s. I was actually motivated by Adam Kuhn. One of his first book was called I Am Gifted and So Are You. And it was from there I started to read more autobiography books, started to expand my view of the world by reading more. And when I was married and I had kids, I started to read more about parenting and then investments and way of life. I have really a whole library of them, and I could really master the meaning of reading more. So I can really appreciate what Charlie is mentioning here, to be actually making effort to be wiser each day by reading something new. He says, "In my whole life, I have known no wise people over a broad subject of matter area who didn't read all the time." So all the people that is surrounding Charlie Munger, those great investors, they read all the time, and they read widely. And that is something that I want to instill in myself and also my children, to make yourself really aware of what's happening. And one of the things that I found that was so good, is a good practice, was to read annual reports. I was listening to one of the YouTube channels, and there was this investor that was sharing that he read through the annual reports of General Electric from the year that it started to the current year, and he could see how the world changed what happened during World War II, where the company stopped producing commercial cars. Instead, they started to produce military vehicles. That was really a revelation in that you can see how the world works. So even you don't have intention to really make money out of it or get any financial benefit from it, I think the ability to actually widen your sense of awareness, having true information in annual reports, it helps you to understand how the world works. That's why when I heard it from another investor, he was telling me that I don't really read newspapers. And I was wondering, why don't you read newspapers? If you don't read newspapers, how will you get your knowledge? It's actually from annual reports. So true and so simple, because sometimes news would sometimes be a lot of gossip, a lot of tragedy and a lot of negativity in it. So spend your time and focus on the right things. One of the things that Charlie said, learning from the best work done before yours. He really appreciates reading biographies because biographies allows you to learn from the experience of others. Imagine yourself on a long runway. It's a 99 years runway and you are just starting from the beginning. But when you read from the people who had 60 years of experience and when they share with you the best practice, you find that your learning journey has been expedited for another 10 to 20 years and you are not starting from scratch anymore. And that is the beauty of it, being able to see a little further than other men, because you stood on the shoulders of giants, people who are experienced, who have eaten more salt than you. No one achieves success without acknowledging the help of others. How true. So always appreciate and share gratitude to your mentors. I have a lot of mentors and I'm really grateful to them. Adam Khoo, Vivi Yusuf, Dan Lok, Warren Buffett, Monish Prabhai, Vin Jiang, many others more. Step by step you get ahead, but not necessarily in fast spurts. It's just like the tortoise and the hare. The hare is really fast, right? But the tortoise takes its time to get there. He does by learning every day. He reads annual reports, reads until he comes to a certain point when the stock market crash, he knows what he needs to buy because he is already ready for that situation. 30 seconds decision making. This is one of Charlie Munger's top secrets. He says that you need to have mental models in your head. If you specialize in IT, you shouldn't only specialize in your circle of competence. You should have a little bit of knowledge in different areas like psychology, economics, history. You don't have to specialize in it, but you need to know what are the key learnings from these different models. And when you want to make a decision, you gather all the models where it is relevant and you make a better decision when you have a bigger perspective on how things work. Most common mistake is people are trained to solve all problems in one single way. Because if you are just within your circle of competence and you do not gather the breadth of knowledge on different areas, sometimes you only think that the only way to do things is just this way. It's just like the saying, to a man with a hammer, the world looks like a nail. There's only one way to do it. So let's broaden our minds to see that things can be done in different ways. The first rule is that you can't really know anything if you just remember isolated facts. This is really good for students, right? So students who try to remember and pound back during their exams, eventually they lose out everything because they don't try to use their knowledge to link to something that's useful and applicable. Eventually they fail in school and fail in life. I have seen people who are A-star students, who are scholarship students, but when they don't apply what they learn, they do not do well in life. So I don't believe that top students mean that they're successful in life. I do see that students who are weak in education, but eventually in life they gear themselves up, they educate themselves, eventually they get to the same runway as you and even better. So you've got to hang all these experiences of these models in your head and try to link them all together to make some sense in them. Like your grandmother says, you have to eat the carrots before you eat dessert. You need to have a general education before you're specialized. So before you become a great stock picker, you need to have some general education. Just like before you pick NVIDIA, what's NVIDIA about? You need to know a little bit wider. What is artificial intelligence? What is deep learning? When you get a breadth of knowledge, we understand how stock market works, then specialize before you choose the stock that you want to buy. You got to see the big picture before you get into it. Identifying your circle of competence. If you cannot respond legitimately to the next question, you lack the mastery and likely outside your circle of competence. You see, in life, we are really that small dot. We are good in that circle of competence. The darker blue circle means what you think you know. I think I know, but actually you don't. That is a bigger circle. That's the reality of life. You actually don't know what you don't know. In general, you don't have to know everything, right? You need to specialize in something, but you must have at least a general knowledge of the other things, the other mental models. Get the key learnings from these mental models and help you in decision making. Nobody knows everything, and they don't expect you to know everything. Intense interest in the subject is indispensable if you're really going to excel in it. So if you're really going to be good in what you do, then you will have that interest doing it. Let me give you an example. During the COVID years, I actually spent a lot of time developing a website on outdoor activities, giving reviews on outdoor equipment. Because I thought that I was really interested in outdoor, but in reality, I just enjoy going out with my family, go for camping or go for hiking, and that does not happen every week. So it was really hard for me to do a review on equipment I didn't use. Eventually, that fire faded out because I just didn't have that kind of drive. Then eventually, I came to discover my own YouTube channel, which I really enjoyed. Even if there's nobody watching my channel, I feel that sharing with people on communication and leadership, what I learned throughout the process, and book reviews and investment advice are things that I'm really passionate about. And I think that I can want to do it because I enjoy coaching people. I enjoy sharing what I learned. Another thing that Charlie focuses on is things to avoid. He used this technique called inversion. If there's some place that you don't want to go to, or you don't want to find yourself in that position, then you need to find ways to avoid reaching there. So if you don't want to make a bad investment, you think of ways. Could there be a possibility for this company to be sued or go into bankruptcy? And you'll find reasons for them to go into this situation. If you can't justify that, then probably this stock is not a good stock to buy. So this is the method of inversion. The next thing he talked about was maximizing non-egality. This is a new word to me and I had to Google it. It is a system where there's unequal distribution of power, wealth, resources, and opportunities. I'm a person who believes in equal rights. When I read this, I didn't quite agree, but when I look a little bit further, then I could understand why. He talked about John Wooden of UCLA, where he is the #1 basketball coach in the world. He has then passed on. When he set up his team, he will tell the bottom 5 players, you don't get to play, you're just practice partners. So basically, his strategy was to maximize the experience of the key person who has the most aptitude and the most determination as learning machines. Just like when you want to get a surgeon to operate on you when it's a critical operation, you want only the best surgeons to work on you. You don't want any Tom, Dick or Harry surgeon to work on you. And that is the reality of life. In business, as a leader, you need to focus on those who are really outstanding, those who are your key players. Because it's not possible to focus on everyone. Give everyone the similar opportunities. You want to make sure that you give the best to the ones that contribute the most. Next is cultivating good habits and behavior. So there are 3 things that he shared how to cope with challenges. Having a sense of humor, having low expectations, and surrounding yourself with the love of family and friends. So the last one really speaks to me because at the end of the day, when you retire, you're with your family, you're with your friends. And these are the people that you need to treasure most with, right? You need to spend your time with them. You need to be able to build good relationships because they matter the most. Having a good sense of humor. I enjoy going to work because there's this colleague of mine, we call him the CEO, Chief Entertainment Officer, because sometimes when we go into difficult situation at work, he tends to be able to bring things into a very humorous situation and we laugh about it, even though sometimes we are in a tense situation. And it makes the environment enjoyable and happy, and it makes me want to go to work in this environment. Number 2 is to allow you to laugh at yourself a little, because nobody is perfect. I make mistakes all the time, and when I look back, I laugh at it because I'm not perfect. I think it's funny. I look at myself in a humorous way and I just move on, because you need to not take things too seriously. But of course, when it comes to business, your work, you take your work seriously. But from the other perspective, when you are out of office or you're having drinks, or sometimes you're just talking with your friends or colleagues, put in humor into your life, because people are drawn to those who can laugh and find humor in life situation. It helps you to build a stronger relationship. Have low expectations. When I saw this, I was wondering, why should we have low expectations? I always tell people to have high expectations on themselves. It means that you need to aim high, but at times when you do not achieve what you are expecting, you must be able to accept that some things does not work out at times, and you must be able to accept the unexpected setbacks of life. And when you are trying to achieve something, remember the process is also as important. I remember that I was organizing a dinner for my organization, and we had weeks and weeks of meetings, and I really enjoyed the whole process because I started to get to know other people who are part of the organizing committee, part of the action, and I really enjoy meeting and communicating with these people, because I found that, hey, these people, I don't liaise often with my work, and I find that, hey, it's good to have other set of friends as well and understand how they work in different departments. Just enjoy that process of it, because it's part of life. And pat yourself well for behaving well, and you will improve your future conduct. I do see a lot of funny situations in office, like office romance, even though they are married to their lifetime partners, and it may seem very tempting, but at the end of the day, I really have to remind ourselves that once you're married for life. Being loyal to your partner is so important, and if you are able to manage yourself that way, I would say pat yourself on the back for behaving well. I don't think we need to make life complicated. One of the good habits that he shared was like being reliable and being trustworthy. When you borrow a man's car, you always return it with a full tank of gas. That's what Charlie did when he borrowed his friend's car, and he was in a rush to go to the airport, but he still insisted on filling up his friend's tank, because he knows that he borrowed it, he must make sure that he must return it in the right condition. Fact check. If you tell the truth, you don't have to remember your lies. So I think this is very important, though at times you do tell white lies, sometimes to my grandmother because she's a little demented, to just help her get by the day. It's important to tell the truth. If you did something wrong, just acknowledge it, admit your mistake, and people will see that, hey, you're trustworthy, because even though you make a mistake, you admitted the mistake. I can trust you. I know that you will not repeat that mistake, and that's so important in any organization. This is a very popular saying from Charlie Munger. Whenever Warren Buffett goes for an annual meeting, after he says all he wants to say, and usually Warren says everything, and he will turn to Charlie and ask him, do you have anything to add? And he will say, I have nothing to add. And I think it's a very wise answer, because it confirms that what Warren says is true. He has nothing else special to add, because Warren has said everything that he wanted to say. So I don't believe in blabbering so much in meetings just to gain attention. If there's something important that needs to be said, then we say it. But if not, let's just not waste everybody's time. And if asked a question and you're not able to answer, you can tell them you don't have the right competence to answer that question, because nobody expects you to know all the answers. You are not God. Envy. There's nothing more counterproductive than envy. Someone in this world will always be better than you. Someone in this world will always have a better wife or husband, will be financially richer, or have traveled more than you. You are not able to beat everyone else in the world. So stay in your own zone. Don't always compare with others, because it won't make you happy. It is the worst, because you don't have any fun, and it's a total net loss. I've seen people who are very envious of another person and sets to destroy the other person, and eventually I don't see any good outcome for that person. Self-pity is always counterproductive. I don't like to surround myself with people who are negative. When I meet them, they will talk about how terrible their situation is, how busy they are, that they cannot do anything else. So pitiful. I'm in such a pitiful situation. I have so much projects, I have so many meetings, and I don't have time for all this and that. Sometimes I just don't know what to say. I think that you're victimizing yourself that way. Sometimes I do that myself, but I try not to do that, because when you are able to control yourself, you're able to avoid it, then you have a great advantage over everybody else, because self-pity is a standard response and you can train yourself to get out of it. What to say to these people? Your story has touched my heart, and I've never heard of anyone else with so many misfortunes as you. I'm sorry to hear that. Next is to be reliable. You simply cannot count on other handicaps to hold you back. There was a story shared in this book about this person who has a certain handicap, and somehow he was persistent in achieving his goals, and he tried and tried. He eventually became a chairman of a company with a wonderful family with kids. It goes to show that he never let his handicap stop him for doing what he wanted to do. And we should also be the same. Don't go into self-pity and let it pull you down. Routines. Routines allow you to maximize correct thinking. And I love routines, and I do that quite often. Sometimes I break my routines, but I believe that routines help you to maximize or make your routines more efficient. For example, if you exercise 15 minutes a day and you do it on a routine basis, you know what you need to do every morning, and you remain consistent as that. You start to eat healthy, you start to exercise, you maintain good habits that will carry you in the long run. So I believe good habits are good because you want to run the long runway. You don't want to shorten your life with lots of medication, surgeries, visits to hospital. So take good care of yourself. And don't work for anyone that you don't respect and admire. If your boss or your organization puts you down, makes you feel terrible, I don't believe that we should continue to stay in that organization. Work with people you enjoy. But there is a but in it. There's no perfect organization, and there's no perfect boss either. You really have to see the situation. If you're in a situation that is really toxic, I've seen people who are in this situation, they get out of it and they do really well in the next organization they are in. Persuasion. If you want to change behaviors, you have to change motivations. It's no use to tell somebody, eat your sauerkrauts, eat your carrots, because people will not do that. There was a story that was told in this book about a situation on the ship where people are getting sick, and one of the remedies was to eat sauerkraut, and many people didn't like sauerkraut. So the captain thought of a way. He told the chef, serve sauerkraut to only the senior officers and let everybody see that the senior officers are eating it. So nobody could have the sauerkraut except the senior officers. And so it looked as if that sauerkraut was really a special dish. Only the seniors could have it. So one day, after a month, the captain said, okay, we will serve sauerkraut once a week to everyone else on board. And finally, the people said, wow, we get to eat sauerkraut. And they started to eat sauerkraut like it's some special dish. And the captain was really smart because he was able to persuade the mass to take in sauerkraut as part of their diet. So in terms of financial advice, inflation. One of the great defenses if you're worried about inflation is not to have a lot of silly needs in your life. You don't need a lot of material goods, and I'm really guilty of that. I love to shop, and sometimes I realize what I buy I don't use. So I'm trying to cut my spending and become a wise consumer. Because at the end of the day, if you really look at your stuff in your cupboards, in your house, you really find that there are a lot of things that you're giving away, and you realize that you don't need so many things in your life. There are only one or two material things that you really use, but the rest of it you don't really need. So if you're really able to cut down on your expenses, you'll find that life isn't as bad as you think. And avoid debt. When I first started out in my career, I joined an investment group that encourages a lot of debt. And I didn't know better myself, and I started to buy a lot of properties, marking up the prices. I felt that I was in a whole load of debt all the time, and I was unable to clear it. But when I started to read the teachings of Warren Buffett, I realized that Warren Buffett way was something more applicable to me, matching to my style of investment. So I started to clear all my debts, and I feel that I'm able to sleep better, and I am more happier person than before. Once you get into debt, it's really hard to get out because you're constantly paying a lot of interest all the time. I would rather use a more traditional investment method for myself. The next 2 slides are the last slide where he talked about the Lollapalooza effect, where a bunch of different mental habits team up to create a big impact. So it took me a while to really understand this terminology. It's basically a few factors that cause a big impact. It could be a good impact or be a terrible impact. Maybe I will give you an example on 2009 when the stock market crashed, because there was a lot of debt, bad debt taken in by the financial institutions, where they are lending people money to people who don't have good financial situations, and they couldn't pay off their debts. The debts keep compounding and it exploded and the stock market crashed. It was really a bad thing at that time. People were seeing that the market was so hot and everybody started to go into the stock market. When it crashed, a lot of people were burned because they were following the crowd without thinking from themselves. So this is the effect of Lollapalooza effect. So this is the sharing that I have from this book. It's a very long one. This book was about 600 pages and it took me a week plus to really finish it. If you have some thought process on his sharing, you can share it in the comments below, and remember to subscribe. I hope to see you in my next video. Thank you and bye.